This story took place on the Greek island of Zora. Here everyone knows each other and gathers around the Aristot cafe. Everyone remembers the love story of Demosthenes and Antonia. The woman died and the golden cross Demosthenes gave her was passed on to his son Yannis. The boy rides his motorcycle on his father's errand and meets passing monks on their way to the opening of the new temple. Yannis goes up to the ship with 2 baskets and asks for the captain. The boy hears the sound of a bird, but where does it come from on the ship? He realizes that the sound is coming from under the floor and sees a little chick who is thirsty, and that is why he is making such wistful noises. The captain notices him and the boy hands him the alcohol his father makes. The boy asks him to give him the bird, but the man says he is carrying it for one person, and then the boy asks how much he wants for the animal. The captain says that the bird will cost him 60 euros. Exactly how much he made from selling alcohol. If he doesn't bring that money, his father will kill him. The boy gives the captain his golden cross. It is, of course, an important item from his mother, but a living thing that could die at any moment is even more important. The boy takes the tormented bird and says he will have to hide it, as his father will not welcome it. He is sure his mother would forgive him the situation with the cross, but his father is a separate story. He is a rather stern man, but he does not swear at his son. The goat pulls out a basket with a chick, but the father doesn't notice anything and leaves. Yannis feeds the bird with milk and bread and keeps trying to figure out what kind of bird it is. It's either a swan or a chicken, but its neck is a frog's. The boy accidentally feeds it with fish while fishing and realizes that the chick is a sea dweller. Yannis names it Nikostratus and goes to Father Cosmos, who knows a lot about birds. The boy catches the man carving an octopus, and when it is released, he tells him it is a pink pelican. Yannis tells him how he got the chick, and the monk says he did the right thing. The boy is shocked to hear that this chick will grow to 1.5 meters in length. Yannis came to the market to trade in his work overalls, and because of this, his father began to swear at him. People at the market tried in every way to protect the boy, but his father was not going to listen to anyone and continued to swear at him. After his mother died, his father became too calloused and went deep inside himself. Sometimes he might not talk to him for days at a time. Yannis made his way from his room to the room with the pelican. Hiding him was getting harder and harder. One day his father asked the boy to write a letter to order a new pump. At that moment, Nikostratus decided to leave the room, and almost ran into Yannis's father, who was standing next to the boy in the hall. With Nikos' arrival, things changed in their family. Their goat began to fight with the pelican. They were constantly making mischief to each other, but the main enemy, of course, was Yannis's father. The boy slowly taught him how to fly, played soccer with him, until one day his father returned too early and saw the bird. He asked his son where the pelican had come from in their house, and the boy honestly told him the whole story. Demosthenes got very angry, ripped off the boy's wooden cross and swallowed it, and then tried to throw the bird away, but ended up falling with it himself and broke his head. The bird escaped, and the father spat out the cross at supper. At night Nikos came to the boy and they went swimming together. After all, Yannis is like a father to him, and it is hard to live without a father. They swam on the water past the rocks in the silence of the night, and Nikos even flew. Yannis was very disturbed by the situation with Demosthenes and told Father Cosmos about it. The monk replied that things would get better and reassured the boy. One day Yannis was swimming with Nikos and the bird disappeared somewhere. He looked up to the very tops of the rocks and saw a soaring pelican. Yannis transformed into a big beautiful bird from a small and ragged chick. It is wonderful, but the bird will not be able to go unnoticed for long. Demosthenes brought in the Aristot fish and heard the conversation of the inhabitants. They kept talking about the pelican, saying that everyone in town was shocked by the huge bird flying. At dinner the father talks to Yannis to find out his plans, and the boy comes up with new things to do each time, but the father decides to be crafty and peeks around the house during working hours. He sees Yannis not sure and is angry, but decides not to say anything. Demosthenes hears more and more talk about the pelican in the cafe. People say that the bird attracts tourists because there are no pelicans in their area. It's raining, and everyone takes shelter in the Aristot to watch the match. Suddenly Angeliki, the daughter of the cafe owner's brother, shows up at the door. Her beauty blows everyone away, even the Orthodox priest. She is very polite to all people, and Aristot decides that this girl will go far. In the middle of a white day, Nikos arrives at Yannis' house and all the people are shocked to learn that he owns this bird. Aristot calls the boy to lunch, but he has too much work, and Angeliki says she would ride with him in his transport if the boy would call her. Everything goes on as it is, except Demosthenes can't just live like the rest of the people. He sees Nikos hovering over the water and decides to catch him in a net. Has this bird done him any harm? Not at all, but he is angry with himself first and foremost, and nothing good ever comes of that. Demosthenes grabs the bird in a net and takes it with him to the boat. He grabs a knife, but instead of killing the pelican, He cuts the net and frees the animal. Nikos soars over the water and rocks. The boy rides home on his motorcycle, but his piston breaks and Nikos has to walk for a while. On the way, he meets Angeliki and she tells him that her uncle has been talking non-stop about the boy. He lures Yannis in and tells him that all the tourists are crazy about the pelican and it really helps his business. He wants to give the boy a terrace so all the people can take pictures with the bird, but is soon distracted. English-speaking tourists come up to them and want to take a picture with the bird. Angeliki speaks English and makes them pay the boy 20 euros, although he wanted to let them take the picture for free. He notices that the bird becomes uncomfortable, whistles at it and it flies away from the intrusive tourists. The boy wants to give his father the proceeds, but learns that Demosthenes is leaving for another town to pick grapes, as there is less and less money. The pelican began to gather more and more tourists around him. Aristotle took advantage of this and made toys with the pelican and even renamed some dishes. Nikos and Yannis started making more money. The boy sometimes played with the pelican when the tourists were at Aristotle and made enough money. He shared them with Angeliki as a talented manager. The girl decides to go shopping with Yannis, because it's high time the boy updated his closet. They sail to the nearest civilized town on their motorcycle. The boy gets dressed up and they go to a party, but Yannis doesn't like to dance and so he sits watching the girl. After one cocktail, he drifts off to sleep, and Angeliki ends up in the cockpit of the motorcycle. At dawn, he wakes up in the ship and sees his mother's cross. It turns out that Angeliki and her cousin were walking around the port that night, which is very dangerous, and they bought the cross from the very nasty captain. Now the boy is the girl's debtor. They return to the island and decide to take a good swim. They jump off the bridge into the water, and when Angeliki comes out, she kisses Yannis on the cheek. They continue to swim and have fun, diving deep while Nikos eats all the food he caught. Later, the conversation turns to his father and Yannis shares his worries. The girl teaches him a counting rhyme that banishes fear and anxiety and they repeat it like a mantra, jumping in place. They listen to music, and the boy says he is glad to have met the girl, and this is the happiest day of his life. A little later in the middle of the day, a pelican snatches an ice cream from the kid, and even though the kid teases him, the boy's father swears at Yannis, saying that the wild animal belongs in a zoo. The boy thinks hard. Responsibility for his pelican comes to him. He tries to talk to Angeliki, but she only jokes. Yannis says she's all about her uncle, and the girl says he's all about his father. But where is his father? Demosthenes, meanwhile, works in the vineyards and carves an engraving of a pelican and then gives it to a strange boy. He clearly misses his son, just as Yannis himself misses his father, except that the boy misses his father even when he's not away. Demosthenes returns to the island and stops by the Café Aristotle, which has already been renamed the Café Nicostratus. Aristotle gets into a little conflict with Demosthenes, and the other even manages to hit him for turning their island into a tourist spot. Demosthenes considers this island his own, since he played a wedding on it and grew up on it. The boy runs home and sees his father. He wants to see him as soon as possible, but he rejects him and slaps him in the face for earning money in what he thinks is an unfair way. Yannis runs off to his room, and his father only tries to shout at him, but to no avail. At night, the father drinks wine, sitting by the water, and looks at a picture of his dead wife. The boy, on the other hand, takes his bedding and goes to sleep under the rock with Nikos, but in the morning he notices that the pelican has disappeared. He became more independent and began to stop by everyone to play, but no one was in the mood. Everyone chased him away and the bird went away. Meanwhile, a bus with tourists approaches the island. They shout about the pelican and keep waiting and waiting to see him, and Angeliki at this time sees Nikos and calls to him. The pelican flaps its wings and flies to the girl, but is hit by a bus of tourists. Blood is visible on its hull. Aristotle is informed that the pelican is dead. Angeliki goes to tell Yannis. He snatches the girl's bicycle and rides to the dying pelican. The boy arrives and approaches his beloved animal, its snout covered in blood. Monk calls for help, and they cycle the bird up the mountain. With great difficulty they bring the bird home, and Demosthenes helps the boy with the bird's wound. The father says that the bird is dying, but Yannis cries and begs his father to save the bird. But the pelican is really mortally wounded, so the father takes him away in a boat and tells his son that he won't feel a thing. The boy stays on the shore and waits for his father. Unable to bear such stress, he falls asleep on the spot. This is akin to losing a child. The boy runs a fever, is delirious and calls for his mother. The father nurses him back to health and then goes to his wife's picture. He lies down in bed and puts her beside him. Demosthenes cries, tears streaming down his cheeks, so sincere. Angeliki came to the boy every day to check on him and give him news. The whole village was worried about Yannis' condition. Sorrow gripped the village. Demosthenes arrives at Aristotle's house in the middle of the day and hears from the people that they are worried about Yannis. Demosthenes asks Angeliki to be with his son, and he himself holds out his hand to Aristot and asks forgiveness for that slap. The girl sat with him when his father went out to sea, but the boy did not want to eat anything. He lay in bed for 24 hours trying to accept this loss and learn to live with it, just as his father tried to accept the loss of his wife. And here they are, two depressed people learning to live. The boy began to slowly come out of his condition and spend more time with Angeliki. The loss was hard on everyone. Aristot became very sad, and not even because of the profits the pelican was bringing him. Yannis also changed and became more mature. He kissed Angeliki himself as they lay on the sand. The tourists have retreated from their village and everything is back to normal, which is not a bad thing. Yannis learns that his father no longer drinks at Aristot's cafe. The boy went to his father trying to find out details about the pelican's death, and he wouldn't tell him anything. But where was he going if he wasn't drinking at the cafe? The boy looks through his father's things, trying to find out the whole truth. In his drawer he finds a picture of his mother, and after that he goes to his father's boat to find out the whole truth. He sees some medicine and a pelican feather. Yannis picks these up and swims home, where Angeliki talks his father into it and pretends that Yannis is in a monastery. The father leaves in the boat and sails off somewhere again. Yannis thinks that the pelican might have survived, since his father had some medicine and a feather. The boy goes to the place where he played with the bird and tries to find his father. He calls out to him, but gets no answer. Suddenly an unusual picture opens before his eyes. Demosthenes is teaching the bird to fly. The boy runs up to the pelican and embraces it. His father did not know that the pelican would survive, so he told him that Nikos was dead. He didn't want Yannis to suffer twice. Demosthenes thinks the surprise failed, but the boy says it did. They cuddle with his father on the beach while the surviving Nikos looks on. There is a party on the island and Yannis and his father have prepared a surprise. While singing a song, Yannis called Nikos over to him and walked out onto the stage. The whole village was thrilled, and one monk even flew on a rope in a bird costume, dropping feathers. The son and father had a glorious time fooling around and impersonating a pelican. That holiday brought them together forever and helped the boy spread his wings.